Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. My name is Eleanor Kleiber, and I am your worship associate this morning. And it is an honor, folks. It's an honor to be here. The other members of Team Sunday are our fabulous band, The Spirits. Yay! And our minister, the Reverend Dr. Jonipher Kapuna Kwong. We are a community and we are on a mission. We are on a mission to boldly grow compassion, justice, and joy. To help us with that mission, we have a covenant of right relations. The helpful hint for this morning is that we should seek assistance from the mission ministry team if we feel we cannot resolve a problem on our own. And, I think we should talk to them regardless because they're lovely people. Is there anybody here from the mission ministry team this morning? Please raise. Hi. Hey, Sue. Know them, love them, talk to them frequently. We are not alone, and you are not alone. In fact, you are all welcome in this place on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. Thank you very much, Safi. So we are now going to get, with the lovely assistance of Aiden Sanchez, who's going to help us light our chalice, I would ask you to please join me in these words. In the mystery of life about us, there is light. It gives us a place to be, to grow, to rejoice together. It opens the pathways of love. I am here at the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu because I choose to belong. The people of our congregation belong because those of you who came before us chose to welcome us, to include us, and to make beautiful human-shaped spaces for us. And we are very grateful. And now our newest members belong because inherent to this faith is a belief that there is room for all who come in friendship, in freedom, and in peace. Today, we welcome into our community these new members who have chosen to make a commitment to this congregation and to Unitarian Universalism by going through the pathway to membership and by signing our membership book. So I would like to ask our new members to join us up front.
Becoming a member is like getting married, isn't it? Some fall in love with us with love at first sight. And they finally found the love of their life, and they realize immediately as they stepped in through the doors of this church that they have found their soulmate. Others, however, take a long time to figure things out and to finally make that leap of commitment. So they have to shack up with us for a while before finally deciding that this is the right place for them to commit the rest of their lives to. It's a long time, isn't it? So, Deborah, Junko, and David, will you commit yourselves to the Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes and to boldly grow compassion, justice, and joy both within and outside of this spiritual community? Wait, don't answer yet. It's a run-on question, all right? Will you accept our gifts of fellowship, discovery, connection, and service? Will you offer us your unique presence and gifts? And will you add your name to the long history of Unitarian Universalists? If you do, please say, we will.
We will.
Perfect. Phew. Now you may lay them, Eleanor. Thank you. And congregation, will you welcome these new members with the warmth and comfort of your fellowship? Will you promise to support their spiritual journey among us? Will you share our triumphs and our struggles as our community grows and changes? If you do, please say, we will.
We will.
Please join me in welcoming Deborah, Junko, and David as the latest members of our congregation.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Katie, and I'm your Director of Lifespan Religious Education. At this time, I'd like to invite down any children or adults who'd like to sit on the carpet. All right, so I had the task of picking out a story for children of all ages that talked about spirituality, and I was really delighted to find this one. I hope you enjoy it. This book is called I Wonder by Annika Harris, illustrated by John Rowe. Eva loves, the text is really small, so I have to squint really hard. Eva loves to look for the moon. It follows her from place to place, disappearing behind trees and mountains, then appearing someplace new. Look, Mama, there it is. The moon looks so beautiful in the sky. How do you think it follows us, Eva? Eva thinks about it, but she just can't figure it out. It's okay to say, I don't know, says her mother. When we don't know something, we get to wonder about it. I wonder if the moon and the earth are friends, says Eva. Her mother smiles. I like that idea. But Mama, how does the moon really stay close to us? Her mama says, there is an invisible force called gravity that pulls all the things in the universe together, Eva's mother replies. Gravity keeps the moon close to the earth, and it keeps the planets close to the sun, too. They circle around like this. Eva understands a little better, but then she starts to wonder, Mama, where does gravity come from? I don't know, Eva. Nobody really does know for sure. And when no one knows the answer to something, it's called a mystery. A mystery is something for everyone to wonder about together. How fun! Eva imagines herself wondering about gravity together with all the people of the world. Eva watches the moon disappear behind the clouds as she walks, excited to see where it will appear next. How many grains of sand are there in the whole world, Mama? I wonder about that too. There are trillions and trillions of grains of sand, but nobody knows exactly how many. Eva tries to think about all the sand in the world. It feels so big that I can't fit it all in my imagination. It makes me dizzy, like I'm falling. I know what you mean, said her mama, and I'm sure other people feel the same way too. Eva walks down another path, looking for the moon, and a little orange butterfly appears. Then she notices there are butterflies everywhere. Mama, where do all these butterflies come from? These butterflies have been flying around for a few days, but they started out as little caterpillars. And those caterpillars came from eggs, and those eggs came from other butterflies. There are cycles all around us, with new things ending and another beginning. Things are always changing. Can you think of other things that change? Clouds, and frogs, and me. Later, Eva wonders, Mama, what was here before the butterflies and the frogs and the clouds, before everything? I don't know, answers her mother. It's another mystery. I like trying to imagine what was here before the beginning of everything. What do you think was here? Before dinosaurs, even. And Eva says, smiling, I don't know. She thinks about it for a long time, and then she has an idea. I wonder if there were feelings. As they walk home, Eva sees the moon again, glowing brightly above the roof of her house. Let's go inside and look for the moon through the window. And so I ask you, we live with some big mysteries. When we come upon one, we're given a little gift. Every mystery is something for us all to wonder about together. So what do you wonder about? All right, with that heavy question.
All right, can we please make a bridge and sing our K-key upstairs? Here we go. One more
I'm afraid in your order of service there is a slight amount of, there's a little mistake. So it says that Jeff Kim will be doing the opening words. That's false advertisement. But instead, we've got Connie to do our opening words for us. So Connie, please come up.
Hello. Okay. This is by Reverend Scotty McLennan, who is the Dean for Religious Life at Stanford and a community minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto. To find your religion, it is not enough just to open one's mind and think deeply. Each of us must also open all of our senses and experience the world. Religion grows from the heart as much as the head, and it cries out to fuse the body and mind. Faith is an orientation of the whole personality, a total response. It is not just a belief, the holding of certain ideas, which is a function of the mind alone. Beliefs can be expressed in propositional form to which adjectives true and false may be attached. Faith, by contrast, is the opposite of nihilism and despair. It may or may not include beliefs, but it is much larger. It is the ability to experience the universe as meaningful. Having faith means that our lives hold together and make sense at a deeper level, rather than seeming absurd. Therefore, your religion is something you not only think about, but also sing, dance, eat, paint, and sculpt. To find your religion, you must engage all of your senses. You should feel it as well as explain it, hear it as well as see it, taste it as well as smell it. Thank you.
Please join me for this responsive reading. We are all born with a belief in God. It may not have a name or a face. We may not even see it as God, but it is there. It is the morning shiver as we wake on a beautiful day and smell a richness in the air that we know and love from somewhere we can't quite recall. It is the mystery behind the beginning of time and beyond the limits of space. It is a sense of otherness that brings alive something deep in our hearts. Today we're going to be asking the question of what is a religious experience? Now I know that when some of you heard those words or the title to the sermon today, it might have caused you some concern. As Amy Sanchez pointed out on our Facebook page, there's this political cartoon. I don't know if you could read that. It says, "I may be a member, but I wouldn't identify myself as religious." Or some of you may have hearkened back to the 1950s and 1960s when a religious experience looked something like this, with the Reverend Billy Graham having a come to Jesus moment after the end of every single one of these services held in stadiums across the country and across the world. And a religious experience thus becomes equated with evangelism, conversion, and healing. No wonder we tend to shy away from this word religious. It could seem rather daunting and scary for many of us. And yet, I don't know how many of you read the most recent article from the UU World magazine, but there was an article with the exact same title on it. It says, "What is a religious experience?" And it talks about the founder of Unitarianism in America, a man by the name of William Ellery Channing, and what his religious experience was like. No, it wasn't a leap of faith up a Mayan temple, up those stairs to be sacrificed. No, it wasn't even a Billy Graham type of crusade. This religious experience took place out in the meadows. And according to this article, what William Ellery Channing was doing, he was just taking a walk out in the meadow with a book on hand. How typically Unitarian to get ecstasy out of reading a book, right? And it wasn't even a religious book per se. It didn't chronicle the history of Unitarian or even Universalism throughout the years. It didn't even talk about the divine or anything like that. It was a book on moral psychology, of all books. And how he described this experience, how Channing described this experience is he felt such intense joy that he longed to die. Remember reading that? Such intense joy that he longed to die because he thought that only heaven can contain that experience and that feeling that he was having at that moment. And so unless we start thinking that the founder of Unitarianism was having suicidal ideations out there in that meadow that day, and we needed to call the shrink right away, that was not the case at all. But rather, I think he had access to something that maybe some of you have experienced as well, that blurring of the lines between heaven and here on earth. So a couple years ago, November of 2013 or 14, I had the opportunity to visit All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. And we got there a little early because we took the subway. And lo and behold, the choir was practicing. And they were singing a song that was made 30 years ago. So some of you may remember how this song goes. Ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. I know I don't have quite the 80s do or the, the sleeves that go up like this or anything like that. But remember that song? Some of you remember that song. Well, I think, who was it? Belinda Carlisle? Yeah, that's right. Leslie, you're dating yourself. You're a child of the 80s. Yeah. So I think that song encapsulates perfectly what I think a religious experience is like. That the religious experience blurs those boundaries and blurs those distinctions and those false dichotomies and those dualisms that we've created, especially in the Western world. I remember my own religious experience, and many of you have heard my story before about me growing up as a fundamentalist, evangelical, Protestant Christian. And I tell you what, it was right out of George Lakoff's Don't Think of an Elephant. I don't know how many of you have ever read that book, but my image of God was down to the T of a patriarchal figure, a father God who is so angry at all the mistakes that the world makes, that God is ready to strike down any disobedient child with a lightning bolt, right? And that was it. That was the only image I grew up with. And over the years, and as I attended various churches, and I was going church shopping in Santa Barbara, I ran across a United Methodist Church. And in this church, I didn't even know about it, but they were teaching what I considered to be heresy. Things like feminist theology. How dare you mess with my mind and tell me that God could have feminine attributes? I grew up listening to my guru, Rush Limbaugh, and he described these people as feminazis, right? I don't know how many of you have heard that expression before, and so I thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to listen to this. And yet, at the same time, there was something that kept drawing me back to this congregation week after week after week. So the more I dove into it, the more my heart began to soften. And so I switched from being a Pat Robertson 700 Club listening person, blaming all the world's disasters on those darn feminists and gays. Remember how he used to say that 9/11 was caused by the National Organization for Women and other folks? And I swear to God, Full News still talks about that, even to this day, right? That the reason for the Amtrak disaster was because of the gay engineer. It must be because of his sexual orientation that we have this catastrophe and that a bunch of people died, right? So it just baffles my mind. But at the time, I bought into it hook, line, and sinker until I started learning more, and until I was in that environment where there was a safe place for me to explore my own spirituality. So my conversion experience wasn't one from being a pagan to being an Orthodox Christian. In fact, it was probably the opposite way. So instead of making a right turn, I made a left turn on my spiritual journey. And I tell you what, to this very day, I'm still atoning for my sins. And that's why I became a minister, FYI. Not that I'm saying this is the worst form of punishment there is for my sexist ways. But I'm just saying, if I could do it, folks, anyone could do it. If I could go from becoming an anti-feminist to a feminazi and wearing that label proudly myself, and attending the Wahine Choice Women's Tea yesterday, anyone can do it, right? Yeah, amen, man. So here's the thing. Only transformed people can transform people. How do I expect to transform others if I haven't experienced transformation myself? How can we have a religious experience here in our church if we haven't had a religious experience ourselves? So the first thing about having a religious experience, as I mentioned before, is making sure, not making sure. What did I say again about the first aspect or quality of a religious experience? Do any of you remember? Come on, that was only 5 minutes ago. Don't make me look at my notes. Okay, the first quality of a religious experience is it blurs the lines and it blurs the distinctions, right? And eventually, I too blurred the line between male and female. I no longer subscribe to this dualistic binary kind of thinking that our society has, right? And the second aspect is to actually experience it in a religious community, which makes sense, right? So that's the difference between spirituality and religious life. Remember what I said 2 weeks ago about the God in sunset, God in nature kind of experience that, you experience spirituality all alone by yourself? Well, guess what? I don't think William Ellery Channing ever ticked that box that says, I'm spiritual but not religious. Because even after he's had that experience of taking a walk out in the meadow, he went back to his local congregation. And I haven't read all his sermons or manuscripts afterwards, but I could imagine that he wove in that experience into his sermons. I would hope so anyway, right? That religious experience has to be contextualized in a religious community. And to be honest with you, I don't think I would have been converted to feminism were it not for the fact that there was a lesbian couple at that church who were on their way to Princeton Theological Seminary that nurtured me and guided me and took me under their wings and said, it's okay. It's okay for you to struggle. It's okay for you to question. It's okay for you to doubt. It's okay for you to think differently because we're here with you on your journey. I don't know if I would have been able to have a solitary spiritual conversion moment without the friendship and companionship of not just the minister of that congregation, who eventually, by the way, became a Unitarian Universalist after retirement, right? And invited me to be the consulting minister of his church. So how weird is that? That my former pastor I became the pastor of my former pastor, who's the pastor of his never mind. And so the third quality to a religious experience, and I think Connie read it so eloquently this morning for the opening words, is that it's not just a head trip. A religious experience isn't necessarily just about what we believe and what brand of orthodoxy or not we believe or don't believe in. And I know that's hard for Unitarian Universalists because we have grown up with this whole idea that we're here to debunk and demystify and to go against orthodoxy in whatever form orthodoxy comes in. And indeed, in the Western world, it is about orthodoxy. However, from an Eastern perspective, from an Asian perspective, it's not quite so much about what you think. Let me give you an example of this. In Tibetan Buddhist communities, they do have debates. They have debates over the Dharma. But rather than a debate having a winner and loser like they would in Western society, and like the debates on television that you see, like the one between Nixon and what's that guy's name? JFK, for example, right? Where clearly one guy appears to be like a crook. I am not a crook. That's not what their debate was about. Tibetan Buddhist debates, they're all winners. And the thing that you're supposed to do after they each have a turn speaking, each of the monks, is you clap and you smile. Knowing that there's no right or wrong answer, there's no right or wrong way of debating, everyone is equally valued, and that's not the point of what Buddhism is about. But rather, it's about that practice of constantly making sure that your heart is oriented towards compassion. So the question for me is, can we do that in a Unitarian Universalist context as well? Instead of focusing all our energy on what's orthodox or what's heresy, can we take a look at a reorientation of our heart? You know that this wouldn't be a sermon if I didn't quote Amy Grant, right? It's not true that I'm a one-hit wonder. I'm actually a two-hit wonder because I also quote Thich Nhat Hanh. So anyway, there's a couple of songs that she's done about conversion and what that means. The first is her own conversion experience back in 1974. The song starts off with, "We were young, and none of us knew quite what to say, but the feeling moved among us in silence anyway. Not a word, no one had to say we were changed, but nothing else we lived through could ever be the same again. Purer than the sky behind the rain, falling all around us, falling into a boundless love. Love has lit a fire, we were the flame, burning into the darkness, shining out from inside us." What a great way to talk about conversion. And it made me think about my own conversion moment. It wasn't like the skies, the clouds broke apart and the sunshine, kind of like the picture, right? It wasn't anything like this, where the sunshine started coming in, and then the angels with their harps started playing, singing, "Welcome home, Jonipher, glad you finally saw the light." It wasn't like that at all, but it did take a period of time when my heart again felt strangely warm, as John Wesley would say. And indeed, this was the other song that Amy Grant wrote. She said, "Do you remember a time when your heart was moved to tears?" Or in Channing's case, when your heart was moved to joy. Can you remember the moment after all those years when the moment love broke through and heaven seemed so near? Do you remember a time when your heart was moved to tears? It doesn't require a deity. It's kind of like those boxes that come with the batteries not included sign. Deity not included and not necessary for this equation, right? It could be like Eva, where you just experience a sense of awe and wonder, and you wonder, where does gravity come from? What's been supporting me underneath my feet all these years? What is the meaning of life, and where can I find that great mystery? All of these things are about the bigger picture, isn't it? So, I know my time is up. Dorothy's looking at me like, when's he going to shut up now? So, I just encourage you to keep thinking along those lines of what kind of religious experience have you had, and how can this, the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu, be an incubator and a welcoming place for spiritual practices to take place within religious community. So can we say without a doubt that we Unitarian Universalists are spiritual and religious? Can we say that we still need, I know, gasp, right, Dennis? Can we still say that we need one another in order to thrive? Because a religious experience, a conversion experience, is nothing more than being your full, authentic selves and the you being fully alive. Can we buy into that definition of a religious experience?
Amen.
I hope so. I hope so. All right, well then, that was the hard part. The easy part is to actually go out and practice it. All right, maybe so.